Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 15 of Sooner Girl Sports Pod. And today, my guest is former OU pitcher, All-American DJ Mathis-Sanchez. She also is a former coach at the University of Kansas as an assistant coach, at St. Gregory's University, where she was the head coach, and at Omaha, where she was the head coach. She is a current play-by-play color analyst for Soonersports Properties, ESPN, the SEC Network, and the current analyst for Soonersports Radio with my friend Chris Plank, which is how I met her. And I was able to meet DJ a few weeks ago at a softball game at Loves Field, and she was so kind. We had been chatting for a few months, and she agreed to come on the show in the middle of softball season to have a little chat to recap and look at what is ahead for the softball team for the rest of this season. So we recorded this on Thursday before the Mississippi State series, so she had some guesses on how the weekend was going to go, and I don't think that she would be disappointed with how the Sooners played. I do think possibly we may have anticipated the score to be a little different, but she said she thought the Sooners were going to come out hacking, and boy did they. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview with DJ Mathis-Sanchez. But before we get to that, I wanted to take this time to tell everyone thank you very much for following me on social media, for downloading and subscribing the episodes on your podcast app, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or Substack. If you do not follow me on social media, please do so. I'm at Sooner Girl Pod on all social media. I will put in the show notes my link tree where you can find all of the links for all social media, podcast apps. I even have some merch, Substack, the locker room, my girls group where we have our monthly gathering and all kinds of fun stuff, and a chat. If you want to check that out, you can find all of that information in the show notes. I also wanted to give a little recap real quick just about the different platforms on social media and kind of what I'm doing on each of those platforms. So for people that are looking for updates on current day-to-day, minute-to-minute situations like game updates and whose game day it is and things like that, I am constantly posting on Twitter and my Instagram and Facebook stories. I do post on Facebook in my Instagram feed as well as Threads and Blue Sky regularly. I post clips of the show throughout the week in addition to other graphics and updates daily as well. On Substack, you can sign up to have the episodes and other major updates sent right to your inbox for free. And I also update on TikTok and YouTube. Those are the episodes, the full episodes on YouTube podcast and the YouTube videos for those that want to watch the podcast. And on TikTok, you will get the videos and the clips that I post to Facebook and Instagram on TikTok as well. And I also have Lemon 8, which is kind of like an extension of TikTok. So if you're on there, go give me a follow there as well. I post weekly episode graphics and occasional updates there as well. So if you're just looking for clips from the show, you can pretty much check out any social media. If you're looking for daily updates and game day graphics and things like that, you can check Twitter and my Facebook and Instagram stories. So I hope that helps. A little rundown of all the platforms that I'm a part of, and each one is valuable in a different way. So again, I'm at Sooner Girl Pod at all social media. I will put the link tree in the show notes, and it is in the link in my bio on all social media. So I do hope to see you there. And now for my awesome interview with the amazing DJ Mathis-Sanchez. There's a lot going on with softball right now, so I feel like we have good timing on our chat. So did you go to Alabama this past weekend?
I did not.
Okay, I didn't think so, but
I was in Houston, so
okay.
Yeah, no, I was not there.
Saw a little Sooner Magic on Saturday, and I kind of was expecting that to come back on Monday, and then we did not see that. So that was, I feel bad for the girls, if we're being honest. I think they have so much pressure on them.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just part of being a part of this program. I think now, I mean, it's just part of being a collegiate athlete. And, I think OU obviously has they get viewed through a different lens, and that's such a privilege. All programs would wish that they have the same pressure and the same expectations put on them that the University of Oklahoma has, because that means that you have accomplished something pretty amazing.
That is true.
I think that it's definitely something that when you enter this program, and I think we heard Coach Gasso talk about it at the beginning of the year of this is a new team, and it's a team that needs to define themselves and not continue to try to live up to this legacy of the dynasty and all these things and the 4 national championships in a row. I think at the beginning of the year, this team did a pretty good job of that. As they are going through the SEC, this is a young team. This is a new team. But again, I think it's hard to continue to use that verbiage at the end of April of saying this is a young and new team because it's not anymore. I think that they're taking their lumps a little bit. And I say taking their lumps, they haven't lost that many games. And everyone's on the train of what's wrong. There's nothing wrong. This is a team who is trying to figure out how to make some adjustments and hopefully get on an upward trajectory at the right time. You don't want to peak in April.
Absolutely. Well, like you said, I always feel like that we get the best of whoever we're playing. So, we see an Alabama team that other people may not see as far as, they're trying harder to beat us. And it just means more to these teams when they beat Oklahoma than it does if they beat someone else. And that's because of the dynasty that we have. And like you said, that says a lot and it means a lot. And it is a different team as far as the roster goes, but the expectations are the same. And I feel like the talent is there. I mean, I know that, the players that we lost, those generational almost once in a lifetime type players that we had for 4 years, like that is not something that happens all the time, and we have to remind ourselves of that. Yeah, I mean, we've only lost 5 games, and only 5 seems like a lot when you compare it to to what we think that we're used to, but in the grand scheme of things, I mean, 5 is not a lot of softball games when you've played close to 40 games, and we still have that many more to go. And like you said, we don't want to peak too early. I mean, they are in a good position right now to peak at the right time going into postseason, and that's where we need it to be.
Yeah, no, I think in years past we've seen some teams, really look good early in the year. And kind of lose some of that steam and kind of limp through postseason. I think right now this team is facing some adversity. And again, I'm just going to say it again, 5 losses. This idea that this team should walk through and never ever be beaten by anybody is outrageous. And I'm not trying to sound like a loser mentality. I don't mean that by any means. But Sooner fans are spoiled. And I don't mean that as a knock. I don't mean that as a knock in any way, shape, or form. But walking into Tuscaloosa, I said this last week before that series, Alabama softball fans, and those are, when you talk about softball fans who are savvy, OU fans are about as savvy as they come. Alabama's not far behind. And that is a culture and a fan base who has been waiting for the Sooners to come to Tuscaloosa this year to play a conference series.
Absolutely.
And Alabama dropped some games early and did not look good early in the season. They looked really rough, and you're kind of going, oh my gosh, Alabama is going to have a rough year. But here's what we've seen Alabama do. Alabama has started knocking some people off. Not just Oklahoma. Alabama has started winning some ball games. We've seen them kind of come out and sort of figure it out a little bit. And to be able, I think it gets lost on people a little bit how hard it is to walk into Tuscaloosa and go sweep a series. And this is, I'm not making excuses, because I will say plenty of opportunities got lost.
Absolutely.
On Sunday and Monday to do so. Plenty of opportunities to win that ball game. They just didn't get it done. And what you hope is those are opportunities that will come up again. It's not that you hope they come up again. They will come up again in the biggest moments in postseason, and you want to see this team handle it better. And that's the message, and that's what you expect to see. And we talk so much about that word expectation. The expectation is that you make adjustments and that you find ways to be better when it comes around again, because it's going to come around again.
Absolutely. Yeah, if we're sitting, 3-4 weeks down the road and we can see them capitalize on those opportunities and not leave runners stranded on the bags, then we can sit back and laugh and go, oh yeah, remember we got mad at them at Alabama, but they learned from it and look what they've done now at the right time. So yeah, you're exactly right. And they did leave plenty opportunities. And I think that's what is so frustrating in any sport, is when you feel like the opportunity is there for the game to be won or whatever, and then it's just left on the field or on the court. And I think that's what's so hard to see sometimes. I mean, yeah, we are spoiled as Sooner fans. We think we need to win all the time, but that's not reality. But I mean,
that for a minute, but I think that I've gotten asked that question a lot here in recent weeks of what's wrong. I'm like, there's nothing wrong.
No,
it's flat out a team that's not playing their best ball. Let's be real. And welcome to athletics. Welcome to the sport of softball.
Yep.
But it's also a team, but it's also a team that is going to have to take all of that. And again, and we've heard Coach say it a lot, be better. We're not good right now. Those are her words. We're not good right now. And that's not a saying we're not a good ball team, but it's saying we're not doing a good job of capitalizing with runners in scoring position. We're not doing a good job of situational hitting. We're not doing a good job of striking early and taking advantage of other teams, giving us a little bit of slack early in games and taking advantage of that. We're not doing a great job out of the bullpen. Does that mean we don't have great talent and great players? No, that's in no way, shape, or form what that means. What that means is all of these things and the approaches at the plate, the approaches in the circle, all of these things that we need to make adjustments of, we need to start seeing a change.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just the game, man.
Well, we heard the same thing last year from Coach about, not playing up to expectations and capabilities. And I always think about Kinsey Hansen. She was like, well, we play better after we've been kicked in the teeth. And, that's something that Sooner fans aren't necessarily used to. That's something that those girls last year weren't necessarily used to either. They didn't have a lot of losses over their 4 or 5 year college career. It's insane, their record. And so, again, back to what Kinsey said, I feel like that for the most part, Coach really prepares the team to respond to that. And once they have been kicked in the teeth and go, okay, we didn't like that, we're going to make some changes. And so I'm anticipating to see those changes this weekend for sure.
Absolutely. And again, I think something that gets lost sometimes is just because you're winning ball games doesn't mean you're playing well.
That is so true. That is so true.
I think that early on, I think this team came out and really gelled and kind of came together quickly. Even at a point where they were still pulling out wins, there were things that weren't quite where they needed to be, but we're still able to find a way to win. We haven't seen this team fire on all cylinders in the SEC yet. We haven't.
Correct. Yeah.
So again, that's a good thing, right? You have to take the approach of that's a good thing, because if you are just beating the brakes off of people in March and everything is rolling and everything looks great, that's awesome. But that is very hard to sustain through June.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, and like you said, going into conference play, like we knew the SEC is a different league, and we know that from postseasons past, and we know that Patty and her teams are capable of beating those teams. We've done it. We've seen it. But, I mean, to beat them 3 times and sweep them in Tuscaloosa, or heck, even the sweep we had in Arkansas, like that's
big time.
It is. Just to go into those SEC stadiums and have good wins like that, I mean, you can't take them for granted. And I think, again, us OU fans are very quick to take things for granted because we're used to just expecting that win and expecting that quick response in the same game. And yeah, it's hard to adjust because, again, like those teams are giving us all we can handle, and they're giving us their best because they know that they have to, and they're capitalizing on our errors, and we're in turn not doing the same, and there we go.
And I think something to kind of look at too, Alabama played very well this past weekend. We did not.
Correct. Yeah.
So it took, it's taking, so I think, so much of this, welcome to the SEC, Oklahoma. Like, well, we're tied for first place, are we not?
I know, right?
Yeah, happy. I'm so glad. Like, you're welcome. We're here. Like, yes, we've dropped a couple series, but let's be real. Who's at the top? Let's have that conversation. And again, this is a Sooner team that is not playing their best ball right now, and that's not okay. I'm not going to sit here and say that's okay. But what is encouraging about it is taking everything that teams have to beat us when we are not playing our best ball. Again, in SEC play, this team has not put all three facets of the game together yet.
That's so true.
They haven't. You know, you go back to the South Carolina series. Pitching was not at its best, but the offense bailed them out. Defense was not tremendous in that series either.
Yeah.
Right? So you had the sticks rolling, but you were 1 of 3. You go through the Tennessee series. And again, you're facing Carlin Pickens, one of the best in the country.
Incredible.
But again, we didn't see this team work in all facets of the game. We didn't. You go to this past weekend, again, bats are quiet against a pitching staff that doesn't have a Pickens. Doesn't mean their staff isn't good, but you aren't getting that shutdown pitcher. So, but what was encouraging was to see, Landry come out and hold things down. But again, when this team starts putting all three facets of the game together, they're going to be unbelievably tough to beat because they're tough to beat right now.
I agree. I hated for Landry that she took that loss on Monday because, man, she was lights out. I mean, she really pitched a heck of a game, and I hate she had to take that loss. And we went to extra innings on Monday, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And I almost expected like that Sooner Magic, Maya Bland moment to happen again, and then they got their own Maya Bland moment. That was a good game. And again, Sam Landry has just been on a next level, in my opinion. I feel like she has really proven herself in the circle, and I'd like to see some of the others do the same. I'm ready to see some more of Audrey Lowry. I know was injured and we've seen a little bit of her, but I hope we should see some more of her this weekend.
Absolutely. And Lowry, I mean, what she did against South Carolina in the third game was huge. South Carolina is a very good offensive team. So her having that start, and then what was unfortunate about it, obviously the injury after that. I think one thing for this pitching staff that has been tough up to this point is we haven't had Lowry, Smith, Landry all healthy at the same time.
Yeah, we haven't.
Right now, we're in that position, but I think now it's just getting everyone back in game shape. I'm gonna be honest, I think it took Landry a little bit to get herself in long game shape.
Oh, for sure.
You rewind a couple weeks ago against Tennessee, I don't think she had the gas at the end. She had the gas at the end until Scaluzza. So, I mean, that's big. That's big to see. And it takes time, especially coming off of the injury. I think we're going to see the same thing with Audrey of just getting back. Again, I think walking into SEC play a little bit shorthanded because of injuries in the bullpen, it makes it tough. And I think seeing a little bit of those after effects even now of finally getting everyone healthy, and now let's get everyone in shape because we got to go. We're running out of time. Yes. Right? It's time. We can't talk about being in shape at the end of April, but sometimes when you're dealing with injuries, that's just part of it. And I don't think it gets brought up enough. But when you're having to take 1 or 2 weeks off after coming off of preseason, where you're really sort of splitting time, because that's what the staff did, and then get thrown in and say you're throwing 15, 16 innings a weekend, it's different. And you've got to get your body trained there. And I think we saw Landry get there, and Lowry, again, just coming back off the injury, getting herself back confident, because we've seen that confidence coming from her. And just as a freshman, being injured is difficult. I've been there, and being a freshman pitcher having to deal with injury is hard, and it takes a mental toll. Again, just getting her back in full force as quickly as possible is going to be huge, and I expect to see a lot of her this weekend too.
Absolutely. That's fantastic that you think that too. I am looking forward to seeing her, and I think it will have a good series, this weekend. It'll be fun. It's always special to have a former Sooner come back with their team. So with Samantha Ricketts coming back, I hope there's good crowds and everything there. I hope the weather doesn't mess up the games too much. I think this will be a great weekend. And then we have Texas coming to Norman the last weekend in April, and then it's pretty much, all gas, no brakes after that,
Yep.
going to Florida and then the SEC, and then, yeah, here we go. So, and Texas, it's really funny. I mean, I don't watch a ton of the other teams playing. I try to when I can, but obviously it's a lot. Texas is a good team, but they're also one. I don't really feel like there's a team, whereas Oklahoma in the past has been just like next level. I don't really feel like there's a team that's a standout above everyone else this season like I have in the past. I could be wrong. That's just how I feel. Texas is another one that they're very talented, and if they're starting, of course, they lost their series last weekend, and I'm not gonna lie, of course, I kind of laughed a little bit. I can't help it. But I think they're gonna come back from that and say, okay, we didn't like that, and we're gonna end up seeing them again down the road more than once, I think. And so that's just an example, I think, of what we've got to prepare for the postseason. And even Florida, I know they've had their struggles too, but we got to go to Gainesville, and that's not going to be easy.
That's going to be a Tuscaloosa environment.
It totally is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be hard to beat anybody 3 times, but especially down there. And I am so glad that we play Texas in Norman. I do think that will help. However, obviously it doesn't make us immune, but I'm thankful to at least play Texas in Norman. But then going to Gainesville, and then, we're used to playing postseason in the backyard. We're used to playing the Big 12 in Oklahoma City and hosting regionals and supers and so on. And we might not see the backyard again for a little bit because we got to go to Athens for the SEC tournament. And who knows after that how the cards will fall. But now's the time to get their stuff together. But I feel like that they can. And there's so many other teams that are kind of on the same page as us, so to speak. Is like, okay, it's kind of now or never to get your stuff together. And I'm hoping that we're the ones that go, okay, we're going to start rising the cream of the crop. But now's the time for sure, especially with Texas coming to town. I guess you'll probably be around for Mississippi State.
For Mississippi State. I've got radio Saturday and TV on Sunday.
Nice.
And I'm excited to see Sam Ricketts. She and I were the same age, so she and I played together and went through everything together. So I'm excited to see her and see her team, and she's just really been amazing with what she's done in her coaching career, and has really done things the right way. And she's as great of a ball player as she was. She's an even better person. So
that's awesome.
I'm really excited to see her back in town with her team. I do have kind of a little bit of a hunch. It may be a tough weekend for Mississippi State. Mm-hmm. I think they and that's taking nothing away from their coaching staff and what they're doing, and because they are a good team. Mm-hmm. I do expect to see the Sooner team come out in full force this weekend. Back at Love's Field, Mississippi State, they've got some good arms, but they are not shut down pitching. Yeah. I do expect to see this offense come out hacking. Yeah. With some better approaches. So I do expect to see this be a Sooner weekend. I really do. And you already talked about Texas rolling into town. And here's one thing I want to say about these Texas matchups. And we've seen them on the biggest stage in Oklahoma City for all the marbles. Texas plays a little bit of a different ball game when they've got Sooners in the other dugout.
They sure do.
They don't look as, I hate this word, but I'm going to use it anyway. They don't have that same swag that they have when they're playing other teams. They don't. You can go back and watch film. You can go back and watch some of those games. They play a little bit differently, and you can tell. I don't know if it's that chip that they have on their shoulder about it overtaking some of their emotions. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly what it is, but they don't bring that same oomph that we see when there's Sooners in the other dugout. I don't feel like we've seen it, consistently. So I'm curious to kind of see what that looks like in Norman. It's going to be a heck of a matchup, and I'll be on TV for those as well. I'm really excited about it. So it's going to be quite a matchup, and I love that it's coming late in the season, because again, I think it's giving, you've got the Mississippi State series this weekend, and a good opportunity for this team to really work some things out.
Yes.
Getting better approaches at the plate.
Yes.
Getting some better innings coming beyond Landry, and I expect to see that as well. Mm-hmm. Seeing this defense continue to be clean and just working to get this team firing on all cylinders.
Absolutely.
before Texas rolls into town, because it's going to be an
Absolutely.
absolute dog. I expect it to be a dogfight.
It totally will be. It totally
I
will
expect
be.
it to be a dogfight, but again, I feel like sometimes Texas rolls in and looks a little different. But beyond that, I really like, and Coach Gasso might disagree with me, but I really kind of like that they're on the road to wrap the season up.
Yeah.
I think it's going to give them some challenge before postseason.
Yes.
Not that every weekend's not a challenge, regardless of where you play. But being on the road in Gainesville is going to be a very tough challenge. I expect to see Oklahoma hosting a regional and a super, but that is not guaranteed.
No, it's not.
That is not guaranteed that a super is going to be rolling into Norman. It's never guaranteed, and I think we forget that sometimes.
Yes, we do.
It's never a guarantee. I think it's good prep in case that is the case. Again, the Sooner.
Oh, yeah.
We went out and we win and take some series, and we pick up games against Texas and Florida. We do what we're supposed to do. I expect to see a super in Norman.
I do too.
You never know how things are going to shake down.
No.
And I think some of it depends on what other teams do as well. But that RPI is, I know people have their eye on it. So I think that it's going to be a good opportunity for this team, especially in the SEC tournament, seeing some teams that they haven't seen this year.
Yes,
and teams that could pop up in Oklahoma City potentially. But
yeah,
there's going to be, again, it's just going to be, there's going to be some salty teams in a regional and or a super.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that those are good challenges for this team. A lot of these players hadn't faced in their previous schools, or, these freshmen, putting them in the toughest situations possible, because postseason has a different feel to it. So I kind of like that they're going to have that challenge.
Florida is a little salty themselves, they kind of started out at the top, and now I think they've fallen out of the rankings, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But, they're a little salty about that, which I don't blame them. So, they're going to have that chip on their shoulder too, and think, oh, we've got something to prove with OU coming to town. So there's that. But, back to Mississippi State too. I think it'll be good to have them play another game at Hall of Fame or Devon Park. That's a whole nother level of environment there. And I know that Coach has talked about it, and some of the players that we have now don't have a lot of experience playing there like our previous teams had. But, I'm sure Mississippi State's the same way. Like, I don't know that a lot of, their players, like, they don't really have that experience either. And so I hope there's a good crowd there tomorrow night. And then, of course, playing at Love's Field, it'll be packed out. But Texas, I'll be at the Friday night Texas game for sure. So I am ready for that one. I never turn down an opportunity to do this. I don't care. But I will not go to Austin, though. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
It's one of those things. I just don't think that it would be wise for me to go there. It's kind of like I don't go to Bedlam football in Stillwater. I don't need to go to Austin.
You're not reining it in? Are you out there causing a ruckus?
No, but I could. There's a possibility. I usually do okay unless I'm provoked. And then once I'm provoked, it's just not a good thing. So I just know it's not in my best interest to go to Austin. So I definitely will not be going there for anything ever. And I always said, if football ever does like a home and home with Texas, I'm out. I can't do it. I'll go to Dallas. I'm fine in Dallas. I can behave.
Okay.
But I can't. That's just one of those places. And I feel the same way about Baton Rouge. I had a bad experience with LSU fans with football back in 2004. And so I feel the same way. And I've heard, Tyler McComas was telling me he went to the LSU football game last season, and he was talking about how their softball stadium, like, everything's kind of close together, and everybody's, having a tailgate, and they're all so friendly and all the things. And he said that he kind of felt like they redeemed themselves from his previous bad experience. And I was like, I'm happy for you.
I'm still not going.
I think I'm good, though. I think I'm good, but I was glad to hear that. But yeah, we've got a whole new host of fans to deal with the SEC. And I've heard, I don't mean to talk bad about anybody, because I personally don't have any experience with Florida fans, but I've heard that Florida fans are really something else. Again, with our softball team playing there, that'll be interesting. But I am anxious for a Florida team to come to Norman for something, so I can kind of get a little taste of what those fans are like, because I personally personally don't have any experience with them. But the SEC, it's just different, and I've enjoyed the different fan bases. And we went to Ole Miss last year for the football game, just a new experience, a new place, and all that, and that's fun. But yeah. But the SEC softball tournament will be interesting, I think.
Yes.
I really wish I could go to that. I would love to. I need to plan
I think
better.
something too that's good too. You think about too. Now it's not a lot, many of these players, but I mean, being down in Athens, I mean, this team's gone down there. Again, not necessarily this team, but it's going to be, the SEC tournament is going to be something to watch. It is going to be absolutely awesome. And again, I think being in Athens is going to be tough. It's going to be tough for every single team that's there.
Absolutely.
And I think one thing that is good is Sooner fans do travel well.
They do.
But this team plays well on the road. And they have, up to, Alabama. Mm-hmm. Again, I think going down to Fayetteville was a good challenge and something that we really saw this team rise up. So I think Gainesville is going to be a heck of an experience. I think it's going to be a lot of fans, same thing as Alabama fans who have just been waiting for the Sooners to roll into town. Absolutely. And that's okay. That's okay. We welcome it. That's part of the gig. That's part of being a Sooner, and being a part of this program and being in this program, and that's part of it. And you either embrace it, or you're going to crumble. And being a part of this program, you have to embrace it. And I think that this team does. I don't feel like this is a team that walks in anywhere scared. I really don't.
I don't think so.
Or feeling, just as a college athlete, you feel pressure just in general. That's part of it. Yeah. We talked about that at the beginning of the pressure that this team feels. It can either take you over, or you can harness it and use it as something to make you better. And that's one thing. The culture, it's amazing what these teams have been able to do with that kind of shroud over them of all the things that they are supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
So it's pretty cool that they even have that to begin with.
For sure. Well, I'm very excited to see how the rest of the season unfolds, and then of course heading into the postseason, we'll just see how things go. So yeah, I'm excited. I think we've got nothing but good things to look forward to, in my opinion. Even past this season, even looking, forward, we've got so much talent, and Coach Gasso is just, but yeah, before we get off, obviously I'm not going to let you go without talking about your glory days, because, so all my years kind of run together, like over the years. I can't remember like who played with who and all that. So you mentioned playing with Samantha Ricketts. That time frame when you were there, I've been watching OU softball. Well, when I was in college, they started at Reeves Park, and Marita Hines was built, and then they won the national championship in 2000. So I feel like that kind of gained some traction, as far as the sport. I've always attended games over the years, but one thing I'm thankful for is social media, especially the last decade or so, because I can't always be there or watch, and it wasn't even always available to watch. But social media, especially over the last handful of years, has been so instrumental for fans, especially such as myself, to follow our favorite players and our teams and all that, so we can watch the games that we can't go to. It's changed a lot since your time, for sure, even. But anyway, all that to say, softball has come a long way in the last 20, 25 years. So let's talk about your time at OU and kind of how you ended up there and your experience and all of that.
Yeah, the landscape of the sport has changed tremendously. I was there from 06 to 09, and I was a graduate assistant in 2010. Okay. And that's sort of where I got my coaching start. But the landscape of all of it, our era was right before social media really took off, right? It was right before all of that. And I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit I'm a pretty private person, and so I'm very thankful that I was before all of that, because I don't know how I would have felt about all of that.
I understand.
I've told my husband dozens of times, I'm like, I'm really glad I was before all of it.
That's very understandable.
I don't know if that's my personality. But no, we really I grew up in Southern Illinois, so right outside of St. Louis, just on the Illinois side of the river. And Coach Gasso tells this story all the time, and I'm going to tell it. But I was the first player she recruited east of the Mississippi.
Wow.
Yep. And
Okay, that's cool.
first player from Illinois, first player. I say east of the Mississippi. We had some players coming in with me. I say first of the Mississippi. I'm going to take that back. First player she recruited from Illinois. A lot of my teammates growing at OU were from California, West Coast, Oklahoma. So not a lot coming from my neck of the woods. But I really, at the time, Coach Melissa Lombardi was here as well.
Oh yes.
And I was kind of coming up at the time where the early recruiting was just sort of getting off the ground. And I remember coming on my visit as not being, at that age yet. And it was just a different experience all the way around because you waited until September 1st of your junior year and all of these things. And all of that had just sort of started of recruiting a little bit earlier. So when Coach Gasso, I had actually already committed to come to OU, and Coach Gasso was in St. Louis for something, and she was going to stop by my practice at high school. All right, at my high school practice, I'm in the middle of Roxana, Illinois, and middle of nowhere. All right, me and actually Chris Plank and I grew up about 5 minutes away from each other.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
awesome.
yes.
Yeah.
So kind of cool. But so she and Jimmy, her husband, fly into St. Louis, and they had to do an emergency landing in their plane. This is a true story. Flying into the St. Louis airport, and like the oxygen mask dropped down. They were never going to crash or anything, but there was something wrong with the plane. So they do an emergency landing, and the slides pop out. All of this happened. Coach had to go down the slide to get off the plane.
My gosh.
Yeah. And so they get to the little town I grew up in, and there aren't, a lot of things. They hadn't eaten. They just had this traumatic experience getting off the plane. They go to, it's called Farm Fresh. And it's this little bitty, just kind of convenience store, and go in and buy a loaf of bread, a thing of deli meat, and show up at my practice with a couple bottles of water, a loaf of bread, and some deli meat, and they've got their sandwiches.
So funny.
And sit there, and like I said, I was already going there, and they just happened to be in town and were coming by.
Yeah.
And it was Coach Gasso and Jimmy tell this story to this day, be like, this is what happened when we went to go see DJ. And I'm like, well, that should have been like a tale of things to come. Maybe we should have known better. No. But I pride myself in probably one of Coach's most ridiculous recruiting experiences. And like I said, it was just sort of like a pop in. How you doing? I just happened to be in town. Just wanted to pop in and see how everything was going and see your family, see where you grew up. It was traumatic, to say the least. And like I said, when they were leaving, they were getting ready to go, and it was a very short trip for them. They were getting ready to go to whatever conference or wherever she was supposed to be that evening.
Okay.
And they're standing there with a loaf of bread. And they go, we can't take this. Why don't you guys just take it home?
That is very memorable for sure.
Yeah. So when you talk about the recruiting of me as a high school student,
that's hilarious.
But no, I loved my time at OU, and I was very fortunate to be a part of some really good teams and have the career that I did there. I always look back at my choice of coming to Oklahoma, and I would never change it in a million years. I met my husband when I was there. We have two unbelievable kids, and so much of my life has been shaped by my experiences there, and by simply making the choice to go to the University of Oklahoma and be a part of that program. I get to still sit around and talk softball now,
yes.
Which is pretty cool. So again, I look back, and was it always sunshine and rainbows? Absolutely not. That's just life. But I am so thankful for the relationships and just continuing to be able to be a part of that program and be a part of the sport in the way that I am. And like I said, it's really just kind of shaped my life growing as a woman, and I'm just always going to be thankful for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So who were some of your other teammates? You said Samantha Ricketts. I'm trying to think who all else was around that time frame.
Yep. So Savannah Long.
Okay.
Danny Dobbs.
Oh, yeah.
Was there as well. Narelle Dixon was a little older than I was, but she was there. Kristen Vesley was a senior when I was a freshman.
Okay.
So Amber Flores.
Yes. Oh, Amber. Okay. Yeah. I was going to ask
Yep.
you. I thought she was around the same time.
Yes. So Amber was was a year younger than I was.
Okay.
So yeah, so that was our crew. It was pretty
That's
awesome.
awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so now you have some coaching experience as well. So after you
I do.
graduated, you said you were a graduate assistant at OU, and then where did you go after that?
Yeah, so I stayed on as a graduate assistant while I finished up school, which was really cool. It was Kalani Ricketts' freshman year.
Ooh, nice.
So
Yes.
myself and Sam Ricketts and Jeannie Douglas, we were all grad assistants that year.
Oh, how fun.
And after that, I went on and I was the pitching coach at the University of Kansas for a while. And my son was born in Lawrence, and
How special.
which was pretty cool. And
Yeah.
when he was younger, we moved back to Oklahoma, and I was the head coach and SWA at St. Gregory's University, which is an NAIA school. And
Yes.
so I got to say this: some of my favorite coaching years came from coaching in the NAIA of just before the transfer portal was opened up.
Yes.
If you didn't get a release and you wanted to go somewhere, your options were a little bit limited.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty cool. We had a lot of Division I kickbacks who played for us there and had some really good teams, really talented teams.
That's awesome. How fun.
So that was fun. And then was the head coach at Omaha for a while before I decided to hang it up and go in the broadcasting booth. So.
I was going to ask you, so how did you end up doing broadcasting?
So when I was actually coaching at St. Gregory's, we were living locally. We lived in Moore. Mm-hmm. And when they first started getting to the point, and this was a while ago, this was, nearly 10 years ago now, when they first started airing a lot of OU's games on Fox Sports at the time, Coach Gasso called me and she goes, "Hey." And I'm like, "Hey." She's like, she's like, "Do you think you could swing being able to come and call some of these games?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And so I was coaching, but I wasn't coaching, Division I anymore. So I was able to come call a lot of the midweek games, come and call games on the weekends. And that was pretty awesome. So I kind of started there and kind of started doing some radio. It's been pretty cool. I have been able to be on the call on radio in some way, shape, or form for every single national championship except for the 2000. So it's been
that's so
really cool because even back, with Ricketts and Chamberlain and them calling those games.
Oh my gosh.
Again, when just sort of first getting the radio and all of this, again, the sport changed a lot just like that.
Yes, it did.
And the exposure of it changed overnight. And it was pretty cool that Coach thought of me to come back and run my mouth, I guess.
Love it. I love it.
But yeah, so it's been pretty cool. And, it's just been really awesome to see how much it's grown and amazing. Again, not just Oklahoma, but just the exposure of the sport as a whole is unbelievable. You turn on the TV right now, you can find some college softball, and that's amazing.
I love it. It totally is.
So we were on television, but it was, what was pretty neat was, playing then, you were on television for postseason. I feel like so many of our games were picked up even then on ESPN. It's just such a different animal now, and it's really amazing for the sport.
It is. I love it. Like you said, it's changed so much, and just talking about social media too. But I remember when really all you could ever watch of softball was postseason, and it was a big thing. Like, okay, it's time for the Women's College World Series. We have to watch the World Series because that may have been all we got to watch all season. And so it's incredible now. Like you said, I can go in there today and turn it on, and there's going to be several options to choose from for watching softball, and I love it because I love softball. Softball and football are my two favorites, and of course football's always been easily accessible, so that one's easy, to be my favorite or whatever, but softball's been one that I always enjoyed and kept up with, and just now that it's so much more accessible, it makes me happy because I love it. And, my husband is a Poke. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, he actually graduated from OSU, and so we have fun with that. We have to. It's one of those things I never would have ever thought that I would end up with a Poke, but here we are. So I'm happy to watch OSU. They're a softball team. They've had a good squad for the last number of years, and so I like to watch them too. And so anytime I can, catch watching them in any sport, I'll watch. But I'm not one to be like, I want them to do well because they're an Oklahoma team. I really struggle with that because people think I'm crazy, especially because my husband is an OSU grad, they think that, oh, she's going to be an OSU supporter. No, probably not. Sounds terrible, but I was raised, Crimson and Cream, Sooner born, Sooner bred, and we hated orange. And so just the fact that I'm married to a Pope just proves that God has a sense of humor, because I don't wear orange. When I go to Stillwater with him, I wear black. And he wears his orange to Norman only when it's Bedlam. He will wear neutral colors. But we went to Bedlam softball a couple weeks ago. That was actually on my birthday.
Awesome.
And so that was a good win for me.
Yes, very.
That was an awesome game. That was one of those where we started kind of slow and they took advantage of it. And okay, my husband's over there grinning, thinking he's going to have a good night.
So one of my best friends, she's a Pope. She's Oklahoma State grad. Her husband is also an Oklahoma State grad, but he was actually Pistol Pete when they were in school.
Okay.
So, and she's one of my greatest friends, and I have worn orange for her one time.
Okay.
She's yet to wear crimson for me, but she will cheer for the.
Okay.
She's awesome. But yeah, her husband was actually Pistol Pete.
That's awesome.
So they were there. I was getting, when Oklahoma State was up, I was getting all of her pictures.
Oh, I bet.
And I'm like,
And then she ghosted you.
Well, I just let it go. I don't need to gloat. I just let it go. And I'm like, a lot of game left, girlfriend. A lot of game left.
Exactly.
And
absolutely.
I was waiting to get her response at the end of the game. I didn't get one, and I didn't send one. I'm like, I didn't need to say anything.
Exactly.
You watched it. You were there.
Yeah.
You don't need me to rub it in.
Yeah. I'm definitely not one of those that will text my OSU friends or anything like that when they're. I don't do that. In fact, that's honestly one of my biggest pet peeves. Now, I have certain friends that we're pretty close and we'll kind of banter, and that's okay. But what frustrates me, though, are the random people that I'm not super close to, but they're OSU fans, and they'll text me and say, "Did you see that? What do you think?" Of course I saw it, but I'm not responding to you because you're just trying to provoke me, and I'm going to go to jail. Yeah, so we actually went to Bedlam baseball just a couple days ago in Stillwater, and we like to do all the Bedlam things. But yeah, so we were sitting out there, and that Jason Walk grand slam was literally hit right next to us, and I was just like, ah! And again, I'm out there in the middle of all the pokes, and there was like one OU guy in front of me, and so we were like, But that was a game where we just kind of took charge from the get-go, and we just, couldn't do much about it. And of course I enjoyed it. And my poor husband, we try to, split time between here and there and do all the things. And he does end up in Norman way more than I end up in Stillwater. But we were supposed to have gone to 2 other baseball games, and they got moved or rescheduled because of the weather.
Oh, okay.
And so we didn't get to go. And so this was the first baseball game that he got to go to in Stillwater. And he was looking forward to it, so excited. And then, we freaking killed him. So I felt bad. I truly did feel bad for him. He had been looking forward to going to a baseball game up there, and then that happened. But anyway.
I secretly, and obviously not when they're playing the Sooners, but I secretly root for Oklahoma State baseball. Matt Holliday, Josh Holliday. I'm a Cardinal fan through and through. So I really deep down, and if anyone asks me ever again, I'm going to say never. But as long as they are not playing Oklahoma, I secretly root for Oklahoma State baseball. Just like I said, those St. Louis Cardinal ties.
That is understandable.
You can appreciate it. So
that's understandable. Well, my husband will tell you, I root for OU as long as they're not playing OSU. So
there you go.
Y'all are better people than me. I don't think I'll come out and say that. But I do enjoy sports, and so again, as long we have football tickets in Norman and Stillwater, and so as long as it doesn't interfere with my team or my game, I will go with him to Stillwater. So I just prefer, obviously I won't go to Bedlam, but not Bedlam football in Stillwater anyway, but I'll go to just about anything else with him. But we have to have fun with it. But I'm a big fan of Chris Plank. He's my buddy. So I love it when you are on with him, because I generally mute the TV and listen to the radio, because that tends to work out better for me. But I know sometimes Destiny's there and Nicole Mendez, and some combination of y'all have been on the TV and then some on the radio, vice versa. So
Yeah.
So I don't mind listening to y'all on TV, but in general, I usually do listen to Plank. So I like it when you're
Yeah.
on with my buddy
Well,
Plank,
thanks.
and I appreciate him for connecting us and you giving me the
Yeah,
time. I've enjoyed getting to know you and visit. So
absolutely.
I'm excited to have connected with you. And do you have any closing thoughts?
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, thank you for having me and
Oh,
thank
thank
you
you.
for, just continuing to help build women's sports and in this game and just continuing to be just such a huge supporter
Well,
of
thank you.
not just this program but the sport in general. Like it's awesome.
Yes,
And
it
so
is.
thank you for because it takes time, it takes effort, it takes all of these things. So thank you for everything that you do.
Oh, well, thank you.
But no, closing thoughts. I think it's going to be all Sooners against Mississippi State. I really do. I think they're going to come out and they're going to look really good. And I think it's going to be a good springboard for when the Longhorns roll into town next
I
week.
agree. I will see you there.
See you there.
I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with DJ Mathis-Sanchez. She is incredible. I really like her. And okay, so for this week's Sooner headline, I have my special guest has returned upon his request, declaration. I don't know what you want to call it. I did not make him come on here, but last week when we talked about Bedlam softball, he said he wanted to come back this week and talk about Bedlam baseball because we did go to Stillwater last Tuesday the 15th for Bedlam baseball and he wants to talk about it. So here he is. Welcome to the Poke, my husband.
Well, and I just said, are you going to have me come back on next week? I didn't say
You
I wanted
said
to
I could come on next week and talk about, or you said I will come on next week. And I'm like, what the heck for? And you're like, Bedlam baseball. Okay. Anywho, y'all heard it yourselves. So anyway, okay, so we went to Stillwater for Bedlam baseball and I'm just going to let him talk about it because I don't want to be mean, but I am going to say that a Bedlam run rule in both of the diamond sports this season, I'm not going to complain. And Jason Walk hit a grand slam and it was literally right next to us and it was
pretty.
awesome. It was very pretty. And so we got the heck out of there one inning early due to the run rule. So that was nice because we had to drive 2.5 hours back home. So shout out to Jay Walk for getting us the heck out of Stillwater a little early. So, yeah, you go ahead and whatever you want to say about Bedlam baseball, it's all you.
You're not going to talk any more about yours?
I'm going to try to be nice. I said what I wanted to say.
She's trying to be nice. That's the key.
We were dressed.
She said a lot.
I actually had on my Sooner Girl Sports Pod hoodie. It was a little chilly. I didn't really make any friends, but not that I expected to there. It wasn't full, the stadium.
No.
I was a little disappointed in that, but midweek...
Softball was playing down the road,
Yes.
too, and it was packed.
Softball.
So a lot of people were down there.
OSU softball played Wichita State that night. I think they run ruled them as well, if I remember correctly. I know they won. So there was a crowd down there.
The corrals were full.
They were.
I think a midweek game, man, we lost 8 players in the draft last year, 7 of which were pitchers. And as you can tell, we need some pitchers. And so we have a friend that their son from Lone Grove, he is redshirting, so I'm hoping that he'll stick around.
Shout out to Kale and the Sudduth family.
Yeah. And so luckily we got to see his parents before the game, so that was kind of fun. And it was kind of crazy to think about. He said this is the first time in 49 years that he has had to root against OU. And so that was kind of crazy. They're a big OU family, and he committed to Oklahoma State. So they have a lot of black on. There's a little orange around the edges, but we sure love our South family. But, I am happy with my guys. It was not pretty. I mean, we had 1 RBI, 4 hits, and if it wasn't for Colin Brueggemann, I don't know if I'm saying his name right ever, it would have been a shutout. So I just hate it for Josh Holliday. He's a good coach. One of the things people were going nuts on Twitter of firing and all that stuff. And yes, I'm a firer sometimes on certain coaches. Don't get me wrong, Gundy. But,
Oh, okay.
He has been, in his tenure, in the Big 12, he has been second, first, second, 8th, which we're probably in that realm at this moment. Second, third, fourth, tied at second, and tied at first. So he has a really good record. We're just in rebuilding. I mean, when you lose that many pitchers,
Did lose a lot.
you know, I mean, you can tell. I mean, your guys. It was a great hitting practice for your guys. Let's just be honest. I mean,
It was.
I think y'all had 11 hits, maybe something like that. 10 RBIs.
Yeah, we had a lot.
I mean,
we.
and y'all had a homer, which was pretty, and it was grand slam.
I believe we won 11-3 was the final score, if I remember correctly. Do you remember?
I don't think it was 3, but
okay.
Because of the run rule, by the way.
It's 8, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anywho, she was very pleasant to drive home with. So.
I didn't say anything. I kept it all to myself.
I just meant
Are
that
you serious?
because y'all didn't lose, so you were.
Oh yeah, I
pleasant
was
to be
very
with.
pleasant. I wasn't mouthy because I would not have
Well,
been happy if
she
we
was
lost
still
and were.
mouthy. Don't let her tell y'all that she's just this perfect
I was.
OU fan.
You're ridiculous. I am not as emotionally invested into baseball.
She's emotionally invested into Bedlam.
That is
and
true.
so, the snide comments and things like that. But
I
I'm used
can't
to
help
it.
it.
I don't care.
I gotta throw them in there.
That's why this works well.
It does
because
work.
she's obnoxious. So.
But are you? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
I'm good.
Okay. Well, while you're sitting here, let's talk a little about football because I don't want to make this show about you because it's OU people. But so last week we went to the Crimson Combine, which I talked about that on last week's show, and y'all had your spring game this past Saturday. I never heard any sort of attendance on that. Do you know?
I haven't even looked at the
how
Twitters.
it went. Anything?
I really just kept up with baseball pretty much.
Oh, okay.
We
So
split the series with Houston.
You
and got
mentioned
canceled,
something
so.
about wanting to fire Gundy, and I thought you might want to talk about football, so I just thought I'd ask.
Well, for him, he got rid of his staff, and he's going to look a whole lot better this year. So they're going to want to keep him because he's the prodigal son and all that crap.
Okay.
So, but
On our football news, you saw me react this weekend to a couple of things. Well, so I believe it was Bedlam Baseball Day, we got 2 big recruits in the portal. We got Jaden Ott from Cal, a running back, and we got Jake Michaela, I believe that's how you say it. I got the pronunciation off someone's Twitter. He's a linebacker from Stanford, so welcome to Norman. Very excited about those 2. They look like great catches from the portal. And then, so that was on Bedlam Day, so I was carrying on a little bit about our portal catches. And then, of course, our Bedlam run rule baseball win, double diamond sports. Anyway, I was a little happy that day. Anyway, so then on Friday, we were actually driving around. We went to grab some ice cream, and I saw that David Stone went in the portal. And y'all, I about flipped.
she did flip.
Flip my crap.
She was mad. She even came to look to see if her poster was signed by him.
Y'all, I couldn't believe it. That one really just kind of hit me. And I know how this portal mess is, and we have feelings about it, which we can talk about if you want. But
I think the biggest thing for him is he had to jump in the portal because he saw that people had come in his position to talk to OU.
Yeah.
And you have to
you want to get a little attention maybe and try to
get a little attention. I think also, too, what happens if he doesn't get to have the conversation that he wanted to have.
That's true.
And he didn't get in there early enough and nobody needs him. So, I mean, I get it a little bit. Now, granted, he may just be playing it just like Nico and all those other people try to get more money. Of course, maybe he actually got more money, unlike
He may have.
the other.
This is all speculation. Yeah. I honestly don't know the reason behind him going in the first place, and then he came back out within 48 hours. So and on a holiday weekend at that. So there hasn't been a lot of information. So we're recording Sunday night at 8:30. So anything that comes out after that, I'm not responsible for not repeating. But before I came on and I saw that he removed himself from the portal, there's all kinds of speculations that I have feelings about. But, I mean, at this point, you can't really blame a player for looking out for themselves, so to speak, because, as I always say in life, no one's going to look out for you if you don't look out for yourself.
Yeah.
So that applies in life. I do think, again, with the portal, we both agree, with the pros and cons, but there definitely needs to be some attention, some rules, guidelines, I don't know. boundaries, whatever on the portal, because it's getting a little out of control. And the whole Nico thing, I don't remember if I talked about that last week on here or not. Obviously didn't finish the conversation if I did, because he just committed to UCLA today. And I heard speculation that his salary from them was only going to be like 1.5 million. And of course, in California, after taxes and all of that, he's only going to end up taking home less than $1 million. So it's kind of comical, I'm not going to lie. But also, it's just like, really? I don't know the reason behind him leaving Tennessee. He missed practice that day. No one made him miss practice but himself. So that's a whole nother thing. I did see a couple of tweets out by someone, and I don't remember who it was. I did share it on my social media and stories and on Twitter. But it was another coach that was like, instead of being at practice, you were filling out your portal paperwork. Instead of being in the gym, you're out, getting ready for the portal and trying to weigh your options and make more money. And I get it. Like, again, you want to look out for yourself, but also for me, and I'm sure you have some examples too with OSU, like you get those program guys, like your Danny Stutzmans, your Jaron Canucks, Drake Stoops, and I could go on and on, but those are some recent ones. You get those guys that are your true blood, dedicated to your school, crimson, bleed crimson. And it's just, that's what you want to see in your players and your kids, are those kids that come in because they want to play for your school. They want to be a Sooner. They want to wear the Oklahoma across their chest. And I get it. Again, you do have to look out for yourself, but there's just so many facets to that, and it's just getting a little out of control. And will never take for granted those kids, like the ones I just mentioned, that come in and are dedicated to the school and the coaches and just the process. There's so much more to it than just your check. There's so many more facets to developing yourself as a player and a person, and on and off the field. And for the guys that see the full picture of it, can't take that for granted.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and we still got to think that these are kids too.
They're kids.
So they have people that are giving them advice that aren't looking out for their best interest. They're looking out for their interest. Let's be honest. And if since it's not NFL setup, anybody's dad can be your agent. And so if we don't have certified agents and different details that we need out, that's why we've got to get the NCAA, get this settlement behind us, figure out and get some standards set at that moment so that you can move forward.
Well, I'm not going to go naming any names on former Sooner players that we feel like their dads had a heavy hand in what they were doing. I'm not going to do that. But anyway, it's the portal giveth and the portal taketh, and Lord help me.
Yeah. Sometimes
it takes a lot more than it gives, I feel like, at first, but it usually evens out. But it's just hard when you get these players that you see commit in high school and then they're changing their mind or what. And I get it, like they want to play, and that's fine. I totally respect these players that are like, I'm not getting the playing time because I can't cut, into the lineup or whatever. I get that, but for those that come out and maybe they're just not giving it their all, they're just trying to get a payday or something like that. It's just frustrating when there's not any regulations to it, and it's just so different than the way it used to be, and that's really hard for people like us who love college sports. And there's a lot of people who don't like the NFL because of those things with the free agency and all of that, and it's almost becoming that way with college sports, and that's really hard, which, anyway. Okay, well, do you have any other closing thoughts? There's no more Bedlam coming up anytime soon. I will say real quick, before I go through my rundown, I was going to mention that soccer announced, we have Bedlam Soccer. It's on Sunday, August the 17th. It will be in Norman. I did get that from the OSU schedule. They released, the Big 12 released their soccer schedule. SEC hasn't released their full schedule yet. But according to OK State, Bedlam Soccer, Norman, August 17th. It's a Sunday. Don't know the time yet, but mark your calendars. So we're going to plan to go.
Yeah, be our next
So I am planning a chat with the OU soccer coach, Matt Mott. here in the next couple months. So we'll chat with him before Bedlam, and so that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
all right. Okay, well, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah.
For our Bedlam baseball/football chat.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks to my husband for joining me for that little chat. Back to our Soonersports headlines of the week. Men's basketball. We got another portal win this week for Porter. We got Xavier Brown from St. Joe's. His stepdad, Justin Scott, is the new assistant coach who is also coming from St. Joe. Xavier went into the portal and is coming with him to OU. And they are quite the dynamic duo, it sounds like, so I'm pretty excited about that coaching and roster addition for men's basketball. As for women's basketball, Aaliyah Chavez is officially a Sooner. She signed her official paperwork this past week, and so we're very excited to have her in Norman in the fall as the McDonald's Player of the Year for the whole nation. She's an incredible athlete coming in from the state of Texas, and we're very excited to have her. For our tennis, both our men and women were beat out in the semis of the SEC tournament. However, they both have good standings and rankings for the season, so they are awaiting their selection show on the 28th to see where they stand for the postseason. Our track and field, we have a women hammer throw, discus, and pole vault all in the top 10 in the nation, and a men's triple jump and high jump first in the nation. And track and field is one of those, you guys, if you're not familiar with how that works, which I'm not super familiar with it, but they're having 2 and 3 day meets a week, and there are so many events that they are ranking in and scoring in each day. And so that's one of those where it would benefit you if you're interested in tracking. You can get final results on Instagram, Facebook. I like to follow Twitter to see the updates that are more regular. Same for tennis. You get more regular updates on Twitter, and there's just so much going on with those, and it's really hard to keep up. So if those kind of sports interest you, I do suggest you look into following them on Twitter. Our rowing girls had a great weekend in Florida, and golf, men and women, also finished in the SEC tournament last week. Next up for them are the NCAAs, which will be announced next week, and they will host a Norman Regional in the first weekend in May. So again, if you're interested in attending that, mark your calendars. You can attend it for free. And I do believe they're also looking for volunteers to help work the golf tournament if you're interested in that, but they will be finding out in the next week where they will be in the standings there and how their postseason will play out. For softball, last week one of my highlights on the show was the fact that the Bedlam softball game at Devon Park in Oklahoma City held a attendance record for the regular season, and I was bragging on the fact that OU held the top 2 attendance records for the regular season NCAA softball. And I am excited to report on behalf of softball and women's sports, but sad as a Sooner to report that there is a new attendance record at a softball game by Stanford and Cal at a football stadium this past weekend. They had 13,027 people. Y'all, that's incredible. That's incredible. So it's a call to action for us Sooners, I think, which I've been saying this for a while. Somebody needs to make it happen for us to get a softball game in the Palace. We need to break that record. I know we can do it. I know we can do it. But our softball team, we had a great weekend. Mississippi State here in Norman, recovering from that rough trip to Tuscaloosa last weekend. We played the Friday night game at Devon Park, and what was supposed to be Saturday-Sunday games at Loves Field in Norman, but turned into a doubleheader on Easter Sunday due to the weather. But we swept the series. It was an incredible series. As I mentioned early in the episode, and DJ and I talked about how she expected them to come out hacking. She really expected them to come out strong, and they did. It was definitely higher scoring games, especially for the doubleheader on Sunday. But we had awesome home runs by Nell Gabby. Hannah Core, she had some awesome plays in the outfield. They really came out and proved themselves by winning another SEC series that really cements them at the top of the league by doing that. Mississippi State had not been swept all season long, so that's really an incredible feat for OU. And also, they beat Texas. And so if we can take down Mississippi State, they came in strong with their pitching. They came out strong with their bats. But what happened was we responded to it. So they came out strong, but we had a response, which was something that we had been struggling with, especially in Tuscaloosa. But we really recovered well. We have answered and came back from that. So I hope that that is something that continues, because up next is the Red River rivalry. Texas is coming to Norman next Friday. I will be at the Friday night game. It is Friday at 5, Saturday at 11 a.m., and Sunday at 1 p.m. And those are all nationally broadcasted on ESPN. So you'll want to tune into that. It's going to be an exceptional weekend in Norman. If you have an opportunity to grab a ticket to that game, I highly recommend it. It's going to be awesome. If you happen to hear this and you're coming out to the ballpark on Friday night for the Texas series, give me a holler. I'd love to meet up with you. But it was really cool to see our former Sooner, Samantha Ricketts, who is the head coach at Mississippi State, come back to town, come back to Love's Field. If you didn't catch it last week, my friend Tyler McComas did an interview with her on his podcast, Diamond Envy. It is only about 15 or 20 minutes, but it's well worth your time if that's something that interests you to check that out. It was just really neat to hear from a former Sooner player who played for Patty and played in Norman at OU, and now she's a head coach. And the Gasso coaching tree is incredible, and it's always neat to hear from any of those former players that are now coaches, especially when they get a chance to come back to Norman and coach against their mentor. And honestly, I saved the best for last this week for the headlines. Before I forget, my Sooner MVPs of the week. I have several, and you'll see why. But they are Jordan Bowers, Danny Sievers, and Audrey Davis of the women's gymnastics team, who won their 7th national championship this past Saturday in Fort Worth. It was incredible. They came out strong in the semis, made the cut, competed on Saturday against Missouri, Utah, and UCLA, and we came out on top to win our 7th national championship. Coach KJ Kindler is incredible. Somebody get that woman a statue. They're remodeling the training facility for the gymnastics team, and I think a statue of KJ and also Mark Williams, while we're at it, the men's coach, go ahead and stick one up there for him too, because if you don't follow our gymnastics program, you are truly missing out. They are incredible. The men and the women host meets at home each season. The men host in McCaslin Fieldhouse on campus, and the women compete at the Lloyd Noble Center. And those tickets are super cheap to get out and support those teams. They usually will kick back up in December for like an inter-squad meet, and then their season runs January through April. But our women came out strong. Audrey Davis, Danny Sievers, Jordan Bowers. There are seniors that we're losing this year. Jordan Bowers won the all-around champion, and that girl is incredible. She is truly going to be missed. And to listen to Coach KJ talk about those girls and just what they mean to the program and to the team and to her, it's just really cool to see how they invest in each other. And those girls chose to come back and invest in their program, invest with Coach KJ, and spend another year doing what they love with gymnastics. And I am so glad, after the awful ending to their season last year, they didn't even make it out of the semis in Fort Worth. It was totally uncharacteristic of them, and boy, did they come back battling this year and totally prove themselves to everyone. And I will say, during the softball broadcast today, Chris Plank was talking about the girls winning the national championship, and he said he really felt like that the announcers yesterday totally wanted UCLA to win. And I said, yes. I actually texted him and was like, I was telling Eric this during the whole broadcast. I really felt like it just killed them that OU was doing so well and that we were about to win. They just couldn't hardly stand it, and it made me so mad. So I was getting mouthy about it. So shout out to my friend Plank for confirming the feelings I had yesterday while watching our women. But shout out to our women for getting the job done in Fort Worth yesterday and bringing home the 7th national championship trophy. Our men's gymnastics, they did finish 3rd behind Michigan and Stanford, and I watched that meet. Emery Dodanley is the high bar champ. Again, the team finished 3rd behind Michigan and Stanford. I knew that Stanford was going to be tough to beat. And I had watched them compete earlier in the season, and we beat them in Norman. I was at that meet. And I also knew that Michigan was going to be a tough one to beat because Michigan was hosting. And so that crowd and just all of that racket, it's just next level. And so I knew that that was going to be a tough team to beat as well. And I understand that there's so many components to the scoring. It's not just, sticking a landing. There's, level of difficulty, so many things with gymnastics that I don't know all the details. But it was so crazy to me watching the men and watching the women compete. It's two different worlds. The scoring is different. environment. It's just completely different atmospheres almost, which is crazy. But when I was watching the men last night, Michigan had 2 gymnasts that fell off the pommel horse, and they still won the national championship. It was crazy. Stanford had a guy, I think he fell off the high bar, if I remember correctly. And then we had a couple of mishaps as well. One of our best competitors had a mishap on the pommel horse himself. But all the teams yesterday had mishaps. No one was perfect on any of the apparatus yesterday for the men. Now, our women, they were perfect on all of their rotations, and that's how they were able to get the job done, because a lot of the other teams did have some missteps. But for our men, all of the teams competing for the national championship, they all had missteps yesterday. And so I guess in Michigan's favor, they had that level of difficulty and just more difficult routines that beat out the fact that they fell off the pommel horse twice. So that one was a little hard for me to swallow, actually. I just was so heartbroken for our guys who worked so hard. Coach Mark Williams, who obviously is a friend of the show, he was on just a few weeks ago. He is just the best guy, the best coach, and I hate to see them end the season that way, but they still got a trophy, and it made it to Norman this time. They did not leave it. So congratulations to the guys, though, for another great season. There's so many great athletes on that team, and that'll be back next year. So again, shout out to them, and make sure that you follow them on social media so that you can keep up to date on the schedule and be able to get out and support them, because for OU to have men's and women's gymnastics teams that are ranked number 1 in the nation going into the national championship, and then women win the national championship, men finish 3rd in the nation. It's incredible. So we have 2 fantastic gymnastics coaches, 2 fantastic gymnastic programs, and if you're not following them and getting to know those athletes, you truly are missing out. So I highly recommend you following them on social media and doing that for next season. Okay, to end my show this week is my Sooner Fun Fact of the Week, and it is Logan McAllister was the OU men's golfer that set a program record by averaging 4.01 birdies per round during his 4-year Sooners golf career in 2018 through 2022. So thank you all again for pressing play this week, for listening to the pod. I hope you all enjoyed it. And remember to go follow me on all social media at Sooner Girl Pod, and download, subscribe, and share with a friend. I hope to see you next week. Cheer Boomer Sooner all week. Remember, horns down this weekend. Red River rivalry coming to Norman, and cheer like a champion. And I will see you next Wednesday where we talk sports.